Imagine this, an immersive music festival on a remote and private island in the Exumas, taking place over 2 transformative weekends, offering the best in food, art, music, and adventure on a piece of land once owned by drug lord Pablo Escobar. This is Fyre Festival. On the boundaries of the impossible, Fyre Festival is both an experience and a festival. It's a quest to push beyond those boundaries. Or at least that's what the organizers of this festival promise the public. All of the latter statements were taken from an advertisement announcing Fyre Festival. The ad came complete with footage of models like Bella Hadid and Hailey Bieber innocently frolicking around in paradise, having the time of their lives. Little did they know, they were helping to promote one of the biggest festival flops of all time. The main man behind this flop was the founder of the company responsible for Fyre Festival, Billy McFarland. Born and raised in New Jersey, Billy started his first small business when he was in the 5th grade. He went on to drop out of university like a true entrepreneur to start Spling, an online content-sharing platform. Then, at the end of 2013, when he was in his early 20s, he gained the media's attention after starting Magnesis, an elite club for millennials in New York that gave its members a trendy black card. Members paid a $250 annual fee to gain access to the hottest dinner parties, art shows, and lectures in town. The Black Card also gave them access to a beautiful West Village hangout pad, which they later moved into a penthouse at the hotel on Rivington, and discounts on the most exclusive events in town. Members were even promised a concierge service to help them score last-minute dinner reservations and sold-out event tickets. Plus, the Black Card could duplicate the magnetic strip data of your credit card so you could swipe in style. Just 7 months after the venture began, Magnesis already had more than 1,000 members on board and was reportedly receiving over 100 applications a day. What made this membership all the more elite is the fact that the club had an acceptance rate of only 15 to 20% in the beginning. On Billy's LinkedIn page, Magnesis is described as a professional growth platform for aspirational millennials. The company provides an enriching way for millennials to elevate their lives while enjoying a series of highly curated benefits. Magnesis is a must-have for any millennial living in a major urban center. This business venture was targeting a very specific crowd, rich millennials with money to spare. While Magnesis did successfully host its fair share of exclusive parties, just like with the Fyre Festival, this elite club turned out to be too good to be true. 3 years after Magnesis was launched, members were complaining that Billy's service wasn't delivering on its promises. Members reported receiving unwanted charges on their cards from Magnesis, not receiving tickets on time, and having their access to certain events revoked. Sound familiar? By the beginning of 2017, Billy had expanded his club to Washington and San Francisco and claimed to have somewhere between 40,000 and 100,000 members signed up. Whenever a member would complain, Magnesis' customer service agents would blame the issue on the fact that the company grew too quickly in a short amount of time. Billy claimed to have raised over $3.1 million in venture capital for Magnesis between December 2013 and January 2017. It's important to note that he had also made Ja Rule a celebrity ambassador of Magnesis back in 2015, which is also the year in which they met. The pair became friends, and their unlikely friendship blossomed into an even unlikelier business partnership. Billy's startup was starting to crack, but he was busy working on his next big venture, Fyre Festival. He had already founded the company behind Fyre Festival, Fyre Media Inc., and had teamed up with Ja Rule to organize an exotic music festival that would rival Coachella. Fyre Media Inc. itself is touted as an on-demand service that makes booking the most influential celebrities, artists, athletes, models, and entertainers seamless and transparent. In an interview with Rolling Stone, Billy said that he and Ja Rule took flying lessons together, set off in a plane from New York to the Bahamas, and accidentally landed in the Exumas after running out of gas. They immediately fell in love with the area and chose the Exumas as their festival's location. Surprisingly, or perhaps not surprisingly anymore, these two launched their festival marketing campaign before they'd ironed out all the details. They didn't have any talent booked yet, and although beautiful, Billy admitted that the location was an ambitious one due to its lack of potable water, sewage, and infrastructure. He likened the experience of building two different festival sites there to building a city out of nothing. Fyre Festival was supposed to take place between April 28th to 30th and May 5th to 7th, 2017. Guests were supposed to fly in from Miami on a custom VIP configured Boeing 737. Gourmet food was supposed to be provided throughout the event by Star Catering Group, and resort-style accommodations were expected upon arrival. Blink-182, Major Lazer, Lil Yachty, and some members of Kanye West's Good Music roster were slated to perform. Guests were supposed to have as much fun as the models in the promo video. Sadly, as you already know, none of that happened. Festival goers paid as little as a couple of $1,000s to as much as hundreds of thousands of dollars to take part in the Fyre festivities. It's clear that Billy was once again targeting a very specific demographic of people. In March 2017, a month before Fyre Festival, a Twitter account called Fyre Fraud tried warning people that the whole thing was a scam. The event was marketed as taking place on a private island once owned by Pablo Escobar, but it was really just taking place on an undeveloped lot next to a sandals resort on Great Exuma. While it was originally supposed to happen on Norman's Cay, which reportedly had ties to the Colombian drug cartel in the past, Fyre Fest was kicked off the island after using Escobar's name in their promotional material, against the wishes of the owner of the island. This was somewhat of a blessing in disguise, however, as Norman's Cay was definitely not big enough for the amount of people who were expected to attend. But still, Billy and Ja Rule were in way over their heads. On April 2, 2017, the Wall Street Journal reported that VIP guests hadn't received their travel itineraries yet, artists still hadn't been paid, and that the Fyre Fest promoters lacked festival experience. The day before the festival began, Blink-182 withdrew their involvement, citing they weren't confident they would be able to give their fans a quality performance. In that same afternoon, guests began to arrive to a festival site that was best described as a complete disaster. While they had been promised luxury domes and villas as accommodations, they arrived to a tent city. Some of the tents hadn't even been set up yet, with mattresses still wrapped up in plastic. Instead of gourmet food provided by Star Catering Group, who had terminated their services with Fyre in early April 2017, they were given cheese sandwiches. People had to search for their luggage inside huge shipping containers that were delivered at night. On the day that Fyre was officially supposed to begin, the festival was canceled, and people were desperately trying to find their way back to Miami. Ja Rule posted on Twitter that the event was not a scam and that the festival's failure was not his fault, though he did say he was taking responsibility. The Bahamas Ministry of Tourism released a statement blaming the organizers of Fyre for the mishap, claiming they did not have the capacity to execute an event of this scale. Ja Rule and Billy were banned from doing any business in the Bahamas ever again. While they just came off as two guys who didn't really know how to organize a festival at first glance, the truth was way worse. A judge would go on to call Billy a serial fraudster, and Ja Rule would publicly claim to have been a victim of his business partner's hustling too. In all, Billy was found guilty of defrauding Fyre Media investors of more than $25 million. In March 2018, he admitted that he forged financial documents to get people to invest in his company. In one particular case involving investors who bought a $1.2 million stake in Fyre Media Inc., Billy made it seem like the shares he owned were worth $2.5 million, when they were actually valued at less than $1,500. Inflating the numbers coupled with his charming personality convinced the investors to take the risk. He gained their trust by falsely portraying himself as a skilled entrepreneur. He then used investor funds to live a lavish lifestyle filled with private planes, extravagant nights out, and luxury hotels. In the weeks before Fyre Festival collapsed, the organizers rushed to borrow $7 million to save the festival. One of the conditions of one of these last-minute loans was that it was to be repaid through a percentage of whatever Fyre received from festival-related purchases, like tickets and funds added to electronic wristbands that were to be used during the festival. Though Fyre convinced ticket holders to preload their Fyre bands with hundreds of dollars, receiving more than $700,000 in wristband funds, they never used that money to pay back the loan. In October 2018, Billy was sentenced to 6 years in prison for multiple counts of fraud. But his sentencing wasn't just linked to the failed festival. When Billy was arrested a few months after the event, he was released on bail. For some deranged reason, he thought that this bail period would be the perfect time to defraud people out of thousands of dollars. Through a business venture called NYC VIP Access, Billy sold $100,000 worth of fraudulent tickets to big events like the Victoria's Secret fashion show, Burning Man, the 2018 Masters, and more. While the prosecution saw this scheme as a way for Billy to generate quick cash to keep up with his luxurious lifestyle, Billy's lawyer claimed that he did it to raise money to repay the victims of his Fyre Festival scam. Because scamming people to fix an issue brought about by scamming in the first place totally makes sense, right? So Billy was sentenced to prison for fraud charges relating both to his Fyre Fest and to his NYC VIP Access schemes. He's since apologized from prison and has admitted that his days are filled with pain due to the agony that he's caused everyone. As for Ja Rule, he did not face any arrests or charges in connection with the fraud. In a Twitter post made in January 2019, he said, "I too was hustled, scammed, bamboozled, hoodwinked, led astray." He maintains that he just had a vision to create a unique festival and that he never scam or fraud anyone in the process. Ja Rule asked to be dismissed from all Fyre Fest lawsuits naming him, reiterating yet again that he was not liable for the disastrous festival. Then there's the media company, Jerry Media. Not only were they in charge of promoting Fyre Festival, they also co-produced the Netflix documentary Fyre. Although employees at the media company knew that the festival was going up in flames, they were told to keep promoting it as per usual. An ex-Jerry Media employee, Oren Axe, even claimed that employees were instructed to delete any negative feedback about Fyre on social media. They'd also flagged words like performers, details, flights, fraud, and even festival. While the company maintains that all actions taken by Jerry Media were done at the direction of the Fyre Festival, they were the ones behind all the social media posts and the hype. Without Jerry Media, Axe doubts that the festival would have become such a popular event. But Jerry Media claims they too were misled by Billy while promoting the festival and that he still owes them money for the work they did. But what about Fyre Media's Chief Marketing Officer Grant Margolin and Fyre Festival's event planner Andy King? Surely these key players were held responsible too. Well, Grant Margolin had a few fraud-related charges filed against him which he didn't admit to or deny. He took a settlement deal that had him pay a penalty of $35,000 and banned him from serving as a director or officer of a public company for the next 7 years. Grant has also had a few lawsuits filed against him for the ordeal, but it seems like he got a mere slap on the wrist in comparison to Billy's sentencing. His settlement is especially surprising considering the Securities and Exchange Commission assessed that he created documents, at Billy's request, that inflated the operational and financial numbers of Fyre Media and Fyre Festival. Grant's biggest mistake here is that he didn't look into the accuracy of this information. As for Fyre Fest's event planner Andy, he got roped into a disaster that he wasn't responsible for. He'd known Billy for years and had worked on events for Magnesis before. Andy agreed to help salvage the Fyre Festival as a last-minute favor because he believed that Billy had the skills to make it all happen. As the date of the festival approached, Andy realized that they were screwed. After the chaos of it all was over, the event planner suffered for weeks with PTSD and immense feelings of guilt. Thankfully, he's received tons of positive media coverage and even job offers after appearing in the Netflix Fyre Festival documentary. But there were many other people who were integral to Billy McFarland's operations. One of these people is someone who's been part of all of Billy's big business ventures, Daniel Simon. We don't know much about Daniel other than the fact that he's known Billy since high school and has intermittently served as a contractor for Richest, Fyre Media, and the Fyre Festival. Just like Fyre Media's chief marketing officer, Daniel was also accused by the SEC of creating inflated documents at the request of Billy. In the SEC's assessment, they wrote that he did so without exercising the care and skill that a reasonable person of ordinary prudence and intelligence would be expected to exercise under the circumstances. After being sued by the SEC, Daniel agreed to pay $15,000 in penalties and disgorgement and was given a 3-year officer director ban. While the Fyre Festival was disastrous for those who shelled out big bucks to go to it, and for those who invested even bigger bucks into it, the people who were most affected by its failure were the people living on the island where it was supposed to take place. One of these people was Marianne Roll, who was also the unsung hero of the festival. Marianne and her husband owned the Exuma Point Bar and Grill and were hired by Fyre to provide catering support during the event. She accepted the contract on good faith and didn't ask for the payment up front because she was trying to build a good relationship with Billy for future Fyre events. But as the festival began to spiral out of control, hundreds of guests were redirected to Marianne's restaurant instead of to the unfinished festival site. She had to push herself to the limit, catering 1,000 meals a day. Sadly, in order to pull it off, she had to use $50,000 of her own savings during the event, an expense that hasn't been recouped from Fyre. What's even more shocking is that Fyre never paid her anything for her service. While Marianne admits that she took the contract even though other business owners in the area were telling her not to, the world was truly affected by her story. Strangers from around the globe wanted to help her out so badly that when Marianne set up a GoFundMe page to recoup $123,000, she received over $200,000 in donations. While Fyre did a lot of damage to a lot of people, this local story just goes to show that positive actions can be achieved when we all band together. It's unlikely that we'll ever see a Fyre festival happen in the future, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't a good idea. With better preparation and less fraud, this festival could have been even bigger than Coachella. We'll never know for sure whether Billy was honestly trying to pull off a great festival or not, but we do know that the people who flew into the Bahamas for the event definitely had a unique experience they'll never forget. We want to hear from you in the comments below to know if you'd ever shell out thousands of dollars for a music festival. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe to TheRichest. We promise to never scam you out of millions of dollars. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.